Okay, so at this point in time, I pretty much have to stop taking book recommendations from TikTok because at 80% of the time, it's just not working out. And the latest victim of that is Flawless by Elsie Silver. It takes place in like a small town named Chestnut Springs, and it's about these like ranchers. This book in specific is about a bull rider from a ranching family whose name is Rhett Eaton. Gets into some hot water because he says he hates milk on camera right before he goes out for a bull ride, and it pisses off his sponsors, and they start dropping like flies. And his PR agency is basically like, we're gonna give you a babysitter until you learn how to act right and this passes, and like you can convince people that like you're a good person. So the head of the PR agency like sends his daughter, who was an intern, to keep an eye on Rhett, and they just like fall in love. I didn't love this book, but I also like didn't hate this book. It was a very lukewarm story in pretty much all aspects. Like, I can't think of a whole lot of good things to say about it. I have a list of a lot of things I didn't like about it, but they're not necessarily like bad things. They're just like nitty-gritty things that like irk me specifically. A couple of things that I like did like about this is that Elsie Silver, I think, has a better grasp of like pacing and storytelling than a lot of other indie romance authors, because she doesn't like waste your time with pages of crap that like should have been cut. Like, the stuff you are reading about happening like are happening for a reason, to like move the relationship forward and stuff, which I think is really great, because otherwise I would have gotten really bored with this and just like quit. And then the other thing that I think is really nice is that our main love interest, Rhett, he's like an actually misunderstood character. He's not like a raging misogynist who we are meant to believe is misunderstood, and he's been behaving this like in this persona the whole time, but he turns out to be like a real nice guy otherwise. Like, Rhett is like genuinely like misunderstood, but seems to be an overall like decent person. So I really like that, because it was a lot easier to buy into and a lot more believable for me as a reader. The things that I like didn't like about it, I have 8 things listed here. So Silver is a Canadian author. She lives outside of Vancouver, but for some reason this book reads like it was written by someone who's like never been to Canada. I think she wanted to set this story in Texas, because that's the general vibe I'm getting, and I don't know why she didn't, instead of just like, I don't know, like writing like she's never been to Alberta before. I literally never thought in my whole life I would get on the internet to defend the province of Alberta, but like here we fucking are. So if you are not Canadian, and if you have never been to the province of Alberta or Calgary, here's my beef with the story. For starters, Canadians in general like don't care about dairy. No one would give a shit if an athlete was caught on camera saying that they don't like drinking dairy to like a buddy of theirs. It wouldn't make it to the evening news. Like, it's just so completely unimportant, and that's my issue with the book, is that the inciting incident is so flimsy and lame that it comes across as like lazy writing, because the characters acknowledge how ridiculous the situation is, and the author knows how ridiculous this situation is, and I, the reader, also know how ridiculous the situation is, and it's being validated by the author and her characters that this is a stupid inciting incident, and she went ahead with it anyway, instead of just coming up with like a different event to set the whole story in motion. Like, it's not believable. It's stupid is what it is. Point number 2 is Canadians are the most passive-aggressive fucking people on the planet. We would never confront anyone about anything. Unless you're like a real Karen, no one will confront you about anything. Like, you would have to do something truly heinous for a Canadian to stand up to you in public. Like, you would never fucking see it, okay? So that old lady who confronts him on the plane, Arcadia, that's so funny, who confronts him on the plane about his remarks and how it was like disrespectful, would never fucking happen. So like, we also like don't give a shit about bull riding. Like, bull riding is just not a thing in Canada. Unless it's like Stampede Week in Calgary, like nobody cares about bull riding. This man would have to be Sidney Crosby for anyone to like notice who he is in a public space. I'm just saying, like, in the book, oh, I'm sorry about the comments that I made about the dairy community. We know that farmers are the backbone of this province being Alberta, which is not fucking true. Farmers are not the backbone of this province. It is oil and gas. For better or worse, it is oil and gas. It's not farmers. I don't know why she's lying and just like making stuff up. Like, I understand it's like a fictional story and I should chill out, but I won't. I won't. I refuse to. Like, moving on. Because he says that farming is the backbone of this province, he's like, some people call Calgary Cowtown. No, they don't. No, they fucking don't. Nobody calls Calgary Cowtown. Nobody. I promise you. Brett arrives in Calgary. He drives downtown to go to his like PR agency and like meet up with his agent or whatever. He parks downtown and he gets into the elevator to go up to the office, and he's wearing his little cowboy attire. He's got his like old used denim jeans. He's got, I don't know, his flannel shirt. He's got his scruff and his like long hair and his like cowboy hat, and he generally sounds like he smells. And he's standing in the elevator with all of these other corporate people, and he says that some lady's looking at him and giving him a dirty look. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, Calgary is not a top fashion city in the world. People in this city generally dress like shit. And I include myself in that general population, okay? Because I honestly can't be bothered to put much effort most days. People in the city look like shit, especially the men. Nobody, and also people don't care what you look like. No one would be giving him dirty looks. And if he looked a little weird, they just be like, oh, they must be doing something weird in his office. But I know that it's there to like cement this idea that like he's kind of a bad boy and like people don't like him and whatever. But like it falls flat because it makes like no fucking sense. It's not believable with the Calgary that I know. He meets Summer, who is our female love interest, and Kip is her dad, and he runs the PR agency, and basically he assigns Summer as like Red's babysitter. So wherever Red goes, she goes. So she has to like pack up a few things for like 2 months and go and stay out at the ranch with him. That's like outside of Calgary, right? That's all fine and dandy. They say in the book, we drove 1 hour out of Calgary to get to the ranch. Here's the problem with that. If you drive 1 hour out of Calgary, you are in the suburbs. You are in like Chestermere, Mahogany, Airdrie, Okotoks. From which part of Calgary are you driving 1 hour out of Calgary from? Because you can drive for over 1 hour in Calgary and still not have left Calgary. At the very farthest, you will be in Kananaskis. And Kananaskis is not like farm country. Not like 1 hour out of Calgary isn't even that fucking far. Like, you just would not be in farm country. Like, you'd be close enough to drive in to go to the mall and then drive back out at the end of the day. But the whole time she's like, I must seem like such a city girl to these guys. They can really tell I'm a city girl this, city girl that. Girl, you like have barely left the city. Like you are functionally like still in the city. Like the closest small town that I can think of is like Brooks, Alberta. That's like 2 hours away, and even they still have like a fucking Safeway or an IGA in their area. Like, no one would like accuse you of being like a city slicker because they're literally like a small suburb. They're like a 15-minute city, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know why they're trying to convince us that like, oh my gosh, Summer is such a city girl. Like, so is Rhett and his entire family. If anything, driving 1 hour out of the city puts you closer to the rich people who are like even less likely to farm. So, like, where have you gone? The logistics don't make any sense. I need the logistics to make sense if it's about a place that I know and I'm familiar with. And then the other thing is she shows up to the fucking ranch in mid-March. It's mid-March. She shows up to the ranch in a skirt. I don't know if it's a long skirt, I don't know if it's a mini skirt, and a silk blouse, and she's got loafers on. Mid-March, the weather in Calgary can still go as low as like -20. It's definitely -10, but to be generous, it can go as low as -20, okay? You are not going anywhere dressed like that unless you want to catch frostbite. If your car is warm and you're only getting into your car and out of your car, you're not going anywhere dressed like that. You will be cold and you will catch frostbite if you're outside for too long. I know the author like lives outside of Vancouver, but like does she realize that like the weather in Alberta is nowhere near the weather in BC? Like it feels very lazy because all it would have taken was like some quick Googling to figure out the climate. And so that doesn't make sense to me. It's like just Summer's job as a whole, because it's told to us that she graduated from law school and she's working as an intern in her dad's PR agency, but she's not working in the legal department. She just kind of like follows her dad around. And it doesn't make any sense because from what I understand about law school in Canada is after you graduate, you have to do 1 year of articling. So that's what she like should be doing. But she's a glorified babysitter instead. And then she talks about later on that she wants to work with contracts and that going to law school is like a good first step, which I'm like, if you wanted to work with contracts, I feel like you would go for being a paralegal instead of like being a lawyer. But I guess saying, oh, I'm a paralegal is not as impressive as saying I went to law school. But I feel like going to law school would not prepare you for like writing contracts. I feel like it'd be overkill as well. Like you would want to be a paralegal. The process like lazy writing, because she could have Googled this. She could have emailed an admissions department and asked them about the steps to becoming a lawyer. Like there were avenues for her to like figure out this situation, and she just like the author just like didn't take them. And like yeah, they're like small details and like I could let go of them, but at the same time like the small details make up the bigger picture. Really aggravated me, and here I am making a video about it. I also made a blog post about it because that's how much it annoyed me. The story is that it is in general very boring. It's very boring. The things that do happen are very like dull and uninteresting is the only way that I can describe it. There's no tension in any of the scenes that happen. And also the characters are very like dull and boring and flat characters. Like they only really got 2 qualities to them, and sometimes we don't even see them act in accordance to the qualities that we've been told that they have. And because they're like individually dull characters, like together they're a dull couple. And I also like don't buy into their relationship because I think this is supposed to be an enemies to lovers sort of situation, but they're not really enemies because they're just not. Like they have nothing that makes them enemies. It's just Rhett being annoyed and acting like a baby in a situation of his own creating, and then Summer has to behave like a professional and gets annoyed with him for behaving like a child. And that's really it. Like their relationship like doesn't really develop because they were never enemies in the first fucking place. And also like the bickering feels forced. And they're always like, oh, this thing that he does annoys me, oh, this thing that she does annoys me. And the interaction they had was like completely normal. It barely counts as aggravating one another. I don't know, like I didn't buy into their relationship. It was very boring. That's really it. Like I said, like I lost interest by about the last 100 or so pages of it. And I literally like don't remember what happened. I think the thing that I do like was their like little reconciliation at the end where she shows up at his like little final bull riding thing and he decides to just like quit because like being with her is more important than like winning the buckle or whatever it is. I thought that was really cute and like romantic. The proposal scene was kind of cringe, I'll be honest with you. Like, I didn't think it was romantic. I thought I was like, no. And also, like, I don't understand this intense need for like any sort of sports related romance to have like groupies. Like, just like hordes of women who like follow them around and are at every single event and like violating like their space and getting past security or whatever. Like, who has the money to be going to all of these events is what I want to know. Like, it's very unrealistic. It's also very like kind of annoying because I just don't enjoy seeing women portrayed in this like vapid, brainless manner for the sake of fiction. You know, I don't know. I don't like it. But anyway, if you want to read this, I mean, go ahead. I wouldn't recommend it because like I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads. It's not the worst thing I read. It's not the best thing I've read. It was lukewarm. If you were thinking of reading it, I don't know what to tell you. I personally would not pick this up again. I'm giving away this copy to the neighborhood. There's my thoughts. Do with it what you will. It might not influence you at all. You might disagree with me, and that's fine. I honestly don't know why this has a 4-star rating on Goodreads, by the way. I thought like a 3-star, 3.5, sure, I understand, but it's got a 4.1 rating on Goodreads. I just want to know how like people are staying awake long enough to get through these kinds of books, because like they're so dull. Oh, also like the spicy scenes, like they were different, but like I don't know, like I didn't really care about them. Nothing for me. I think it was once again like the complete lack of tension between the characters and the writing. Like it just, yeah, it didn't really do anything for me. It was like very boring. It was kind of like when I watched 50 Shades of Grey on Netflix, because I wanted to see what the fuss was about, and then like I think it was like 70% of the way through, I would just like fast forward through all of like the Zegsy scenes because they were just so dull, and I was like, okay, like whatever, let's get past this. It was the same thing every time, you know? It's just not worth watching. And that's similarly how I feel about this book. But yeah, I don't have a sign off, so